Hi, I'm Marty Nemko, and I want to talk to you a little bit about what I think are some perhaps non-obvious truths about how to be a good, maybe even beloved manager or leader. A metaphor I like is that it's useful to manage like a gardener. No gardener would water, feed, and give the same amount of sunlight to all plants. The same is true of your supervisees. Some need more supervision, some need less. Some need a higher level of work, others need lower. Some need very clear structure, others need less. Some can be completely trusted, others need to have external accountability. So the wise manager does not fall for the conventional argument that you should treat everybody equally. You should treat everybody fairly. That is, so as to bring out the best in each, or to go back to the gardener metaphor, to enable each to flower and fruit as much as is possible for that person. Next, um, it does bother me that society values steak as much as sizzle. Marketing matters, and that's true of managers and leaders as well. And the sizzle is about charisma. Yes, there are the anomalous managers and leaders who do fine, who are phlegmatic and not great public speakers. And I've just been reading a biography of Benjamin Franklin, who was terrified of public speaking. He would only read his speeches. But they are the outliers. They are the exceptions. Normally, the ability to speak well, even if it's just 2 minutes at a meeting, let alone a big presentation to the troops to inspire the troops or whatever, is a particularly important skill. And what I want to share in this brief video is the dangers of scripting. If you script and then you try to memorize it, you are going to leach what is the most important thing in your talk, which is chemistry. I think, as you can tell here, that while I've got in front of me right now, I'm looking at 4 bullet points that I want to make sure I make. But what you're hearing is ad-libbing. I'm trusting that, having chosen a topic I know something about, that the right words will come out with the right intonation that won't feel boring. Even if I say and ah and have to retrace, it's not a big deal. But there is a credibility that comes from being ad-lib, from being authentic. So I would encourage you to, if you need to script something or giving a talk, do that, but then use that as a starting place. Then reduce it to just a few words of signposts along the way of your talk, and then practice, if you want to practice using just those few words as signposts, but don't over practice, because again, you're going to sound too pat, too scripted. Another aspect of cultivating charisma is, and it almost makes me cringe to say this, but if I'm really to be helpful to you in providing a little video about how to be a good, an effective manager and leader, it's crap-like posture. Helen Gurley Brown, I believe, who was the founder of Cosmo, said after 40, especially, it all comes down to posture. So people, my natural body language is kind of hunched, almost like an ascetic monk. But we all saw how good, for example, Barack Obama's posture is. His shoulders were back. His chin was not even low, especially when saying something controversial. His chin would be slightly above center, which made him seem very confident without being stuck up. It wasn't here, but it wasn't here. It was kind of like this. So that's a little crappy, but effective way to get charisma. Unlike me, who talks too fast and therefore seems a little out of control, people with charisma normally talk, I'll try to model it here, a little bit slower and with purpose. Yes, with enthusiasm. Yes, with a certain sense of pointedness. Yes, with a certain amount of variation in speed, in volume. But not out of control, not like this. That's not charismatic. And a final element, at least for what I want to talk about today in terms of charisma, is defaulting to the positive where possible. No Pollyanna, that doesn't work. You'll have no credibility. But to generally err on the side of positivity while acknowledging negatives is what is perceived by the masses as charismatic. The next thing I want to talk about, the third topic I want to talk about with regard to effective management and leadership, is to minimize meetings. I know we live in an egalitarian era where buy-in and collaboration and consensus are core to what is seen as the modern day manager. But while people say that with one side of their mouth, on the other side of their mouth is, I can't stand all these meetings and all this endless discussion of an issue. Can't we just make a decision and get on with it? No, today's mediocre modern manager will indeed make priority this consensus buy-in thing. Whereas in fact, the really good manager who ultimately ends up being more beloved is crisp. Yes, there is a time, especially when you are not clear on what to do, it's good to get input. But generally, you want to make crisp decisions and minimize meetings. You want input? Send an email to everybody and say, hey, I'd like your opinion about what to do about this. Really have minimal meetings because people tend to go to sleep at them. Then they have agendas like they want to show off. Try to minimize meetings. And when you've got them, sure, maybe once a month you want a standing meeting so that people can know that there's a predictable once a month that they'll get a chance to raise an issue, bond with each other, whatever. But not all the many managers and leaders have far more than one standing meeting. Standing meeting also has a different definition, which is meeting while you're standing up. There was a study at Stanford not so long ago that found that meetings that occur while people are standing, but that last no more than 20, maybe 30 minutes, tend to be the most effective. People want to get things moving, and also when you're standing, your blood circulation is better, you're more energetic. So consider having some of your meetings at least as standing meetings, and especially doing it right before lunch, because people then want to get out on time. And do send an agenda in advance, and really pretty much, not slavishly, but try to adhere to it pretty well. Otherwise, just the conversations tend to expand, and in retrospect, when one looks back at one's year and one thinks about all those meetings, you will have accomplished more and people will have felt better about the meetings if you do keep pretty close to a brief, tight agenda. And I think really that's all I want to say. I think what I've said here are pretty important bases for being an effective manager and leader. Again, to reiterate, try to manage like a gardener. Treat every employee like a seed who may need different amounts of water and fertilizer and sunshine in order to flower. Treat everybody fairly to bring out the best in each, not treat everybody equally unless there are union rules or other things that require you to. Cultivate charisma by being generally erring to the positive, being enthusiastic but not out of control. Learn some public speaking, but not by memorizing, but by talking about what you know, making, if you need to make a script, but then have just a few words to signposts and ad-libs so that you can create whatever chemistry is going to exist will come out much more if you are spontaneous, as I've tried to model here. And finally, minimize meetings as much as possible. Maybe once a month standing meeting, maybe have the meeting literally standing and keep them short and keep to a relatively tight agenda. Hope that's helpful. I'm Marty Nemko. Thanks for watching. By the way, these tips are from my new book, Careers for Dummies, which is now which is available for pre-order on Amazon. Again, I'm Marty Nemko. Thanks.